15 taon sa pagsusulat at sa pag-broadcast. Sa madaling salita, legit. At noon, kasi kung retirado na, legit pa rin naman. Pwede rin maging miyembro. At napakita ko yan kasi ang Samahang Plaridel ay nagwe-welcome ng mga bagong miyembro. Sabi nga sa mascot, inject new blood. Pero ang membership yata kinakailangan approval pa ng mga miyembro ng board bago sila matanggap ng miyembro ng Samahang Plaridel. Anyway, sa umaga nito, isa po sa ating naimbitahang panakin ay si Congressman Suarez ng Republican ng Quezon. At matatanong natin sa kanya, ano bang nakalinya ng mga usaping sasalang sa legislatura sa pagpasok ng Duterte administration. By the way, si Congressman Suarez sa kanyang partido ng nakarang eleksyon ni Puna at hindi ko yata kayo tumatalo na sa pangalawa na partido.
Hindi ba naman? Una. Just at the meeting last Friday with the former Vice President.
Ano po ang papel ng una? Bahagi ng minorya o ng majority?
We're looking at the possibility to assume the position as minority. At the same time, meron na kaming mga initial discussion with the PDP laban. And nagbigay din naman kami na assurance that constructive naman ang aming pagiging minority. Palagay namin, napakaganda ng kanilang pinopropose. Wala na masyadong debate. At may mga kasama din kami na talagang highlight tulad namin tulong, yung death penalty. So, sigurado tatayo dyan ng aming knowledge, Sienza, saka sila, Roque, Untitled Chapter. So, this will be a very interesting talk.
Yung pong Liberal Party, what remains of former Speaker o outgoing Speaker Del Monte, tila kumikiling sila na maging minority. Of course, alam naman natin na sa Kongreso, kung sino yung pinakamarami pa rin, siya napipiling minority.
Well, as I've said, yung bumoto kay Bebot will be yung hindi ko yung point mo is that ang liberal ba will be aiming to get the minority. On a political strategy, that will be a very sound approach kasi ang Vice President ay liberal. So, kung ako naman ang PDP, hindi naman ako papayag ng minority. Liberal. Ito ang Vice President. Liberal. I mean, I'm talking on a political strategy. But it will be a numbers game again. So, kung ang una will have enough number to assume the minority, that means disseminated yung mga liberal. O ayaw, may mga liberal na ayaw mag-minority.
Ano kung naman anong dating na yung isa sa miyembro ng liberal, miyembro ng gabinete, ni President Duterte, si Vice President Plaridel, pagkatapos ang magiging leader o mag-aspire sa liderato ng pagiging oposisyon ay liberal?
Well, as I've said, kanina earlier, kung ako ang PDP laban, I will try to pacify the possibility na liberal. Kasi, sa totoo lang, may number of us. They would like to get the minority, they will fight for it. Nahihirapan kami unless maakit namin yung ibang mga independent group o yung hindi naman masyadong serious sa kanilang mga political advocacy na sumama na sa minority. Nandiyan NPC, NUP, NP.
Ano po dapat gawin? Of course, si Vice President Plaridel, tenable po ba na siya ay miyembro ng gabinete na magiging oposisyon sa liberal? O nararapat siya mag-resign sa liberal kung gusto niya manatili sa
liberal?
liberal?
Siguro, pwede ito sagutin yan after the 25th. be in your first Kapihan, pag-usapan natin aftermath. But as of now, nandun pa tayo sa format na yun. Ang basa namin, yung ginawang pag-appoint kay Vice President Lenny, yung sa mga nakakaraming liberal na ambisyonin pa ang maging minority. You may be right, sir. So, along that line, as I said, it's the same to it until July 20.
Ito, nung nakalipas na nakakongreso, isa kayo sa main movement ng mga tax reform bill. Mag-nosebleed tayo ngayon. May panukala si Budget Secretary Jokno na gawing 15% ang VAT, babaan ng PIT at ang CIT. PIT being personal income tax at the CIT, corporate income tax. Sabi ng ibang kampo, pag tinaasan ng VAT from 12 to 15, kawawa mahihirap. Pag binabaan ng CIT at ang PIT, tuwan-tuwa yung mga may pera. Ano po yung masasabi?
On the outset kasi, kung tataasan mo ng 15% ang VAT, that amounts to what we call the indirect taxation, meaning pwersahan. Kasi yung may mga... Kasi, aminin natin, revenue collection is still a problem. So, kung gagawin mo forced taxation, VAT talaga, dahil sa... Yung VAT hindi mo may iwasan kasi ngayon halos with this advent march on technology, halos lahat na nag-i-issue ng resibo, hindi mo na pwedeng itago. Gawa nga nitong mga meter, yung mga kaha, lahat yan. May CLU ang biyaya. So basta may ginawa kang servisyo na patable, bayad ka. So forced taxation yan. Wala kang magagawa. No? Unless kung gagamitin mo yung yung skill and talent of a BIR collector to collect taxes, baka ang basa nila, baka mahirapan tayo ma-attain ng ating target. So gawin natin, taasan natin ang VAT. Pwede para sabihin na trabaho ng tamad yan kasi piniperso mo So para sa akin, napakarami pang area na dapat tingnan. Katulad ng lahat tayo may cellphone, di ba? Yan ang isang matagal ko na sinasabi, i-metro ang cellphone para magprotektahan din yung mga prepaid at postpaid. Kasi ang prepaid, kung ano yung sabihin ng dikta ng telco, wala ka nang magagawa. Sabihin, ito na lang ang balance mo. Magre-reklamo pa, teka, hindi ko naman nagamit Isasabi ko, ayun, kukutulang ka namin. Pero sa akin kung metro ka, pwede mong kunin yung ticket tape mo at sabihin mo, ilang beses na ba ako tumawag? Ilang beses na ako na. May metro ka. Right now, this telco base their income reporting on what they report. Ang BIR walang capability to check whether ano ba veracity ng income mo. Wala naman silang metro. How can you raise the performance of the telco? Napakalaking industry. So napakaraming industry na pwede pang hanapan ang weakness. Siguro, kung minority, I will post that. Hanapin mo nga ninyo yung improve your performance, yung post-taxation. 3% ang tao, magdagdag pa ng 3%.
As of now, kung magkano bang nakokolekta ng ating bansa? Yung pinakamuli sa VAT?
Well, hindi ko monitor ang VAT. Ang na-monitor ko itong syntax. VAT is, kung walang VAT, off ang target. National goal. And ang alam ko na taon na akong wala. So, yung sa akin, monitoring na lang. Ang alam ko, ang syntax lang ang nag-surpass sa expectation. Cigarette and alcohol.
Totoo po ba ang Pilipinas sa isa pa rin sa pinakamababa ng tax efficiency sa collection sa buong Southeast Asia?
Itong nakaraang taon, hindi in-invoke ng administrasyon ng attrition kasi yan yung batas na pinahal ko nung ako ang share ng Ways and Means na performance-related tayo sa BIR na you're rewarded if you exceed and you're punished if you fail, di ba? Yun ang ratio. Day 1 ng 2010, last administration, day 1 nila, palpak na sila sa cost. They never attain their target. Eh, walang rewarding punishment. Kasi yung attrition, dapat pinatupad ng Pangulong Pinoy. Hindi niya ginawa.
So, that could be the reason. That's the reason.
Yun na nga, walang sa. Hindi ko naman ugali yung manira ng nakaraan, pero talagang pantak ng nakaraan na alam mo. A lot of failures and mistakes and nothing beats this past. I mean, season now, this is my 10th term as congressman. So, may karapatan na naman sabi kung tama o mali. Ito talaga napakaraming lakas ito.
Ano kung magiging epekto sa karaniwang mamamayan kapag tinaasan ng pinapanukala yung budget sa fiscal from 12 to 15%?
Well, ang unang tatamaan niya, transport. Tatamaan, TEPCO. Plastic, ano yan? Tatamaan na power. Tatamaan water. Lahat na meters, tama. Tollway, tama. Lahat. So, sabi ko, dahan-dahan naman. Tingnan muna natin bago natin ipatupad. Kasi, well, I'm not sure yet what will be my role on the coming Congress. But as I said, siguro, I talk to Sunny and tell him pa tayo sa mga weakness ng collection. Ang isang, di ba, nag-file ako ng road usage tax, di ba? Palagay ko naman tayo rito ng mga, ayun, na nasa media, makikita nyo, naayos naman ang lansangan. Sapagkat ang ginawa ko, yung pera, hindi ko nilagay sa gobyerno, nilagay ko sa kalsada. Kasi gumagamit sa ng kalsada, sa sakyan. So, sabi ko, taasan mo ang plaka, pero ilagay mo ang pera sa kalsada. So, we are still the lowest in the region when it comes to license plate. Tingnan mo yun. That's another area. Pangalawa, talaga naman sobra na ang dami ng sasakyan sa lansangan. Sabi nga ni President Duterte mismo, there is no silver that can solve the problem. Diba, debate natin sa Dagupan, you remember, sa yung media, sinabi niya, kung tinanong ang tungkol sa traffic. Sa totoo lang, wala talaga immediate solution. What we can do, siguro, is mitigate the problem. Hindi naman ganun kabigat, pero may solution. Kahit ako, kayo nasa media, alam naman rin kung isang napakaraming problema ng traffic. And one of them is police enforcement. Nakikita naman niyo yung mga choke point, nagtataka kayo, nakatambak lahat ng mga bases at tipo rito, hindi gumagalaw. Kotong eh. Di ba? Tayo na mga nasa private, singit tayo doon sa nakitirang lane. Sila, walang gumagalaw. What do you call that? That's police enforcement. Those are the issues that can be mitigated. But at the same time, talaga namang alarming na ang dami ng sakit.
Naalala ko po, medyo maraming sumamaan daw sa inyo, no? Nung kayo ang author ng batas na dinadagdagan ng karagdagang quiz, ang 4-wheel. Kaya nagkaroon ng mga SUV, Philippine version. Sa ibang bansa ay 4-wheel drive. Sa Pilipinas, 2-wheel version. Pero merong nabibenta na conversion o reversion kit.
Hindi, alam mo, Arian, nung ginawa ko yung MBUC, tagal na yan eh. Siguro yung iba sa inyo rito, hindi pa bumoboto. So, ang issue doon ay bakit mo tataasan at hindi mo gawin kung magkano yung sasakyan, doon mo gawin ang base ng taxation. Yung model na ginawa natin is fair and equitable. Kasi ang ginawa namin ni JP, Senator Enrique, siya ang counterpart. Ginawa namin hulugan. So, hindi masakit sa bulsa ng motor vehicle owner. At saka, yung rate na ginawa ko, ay yung pa rin ang pinakababa sa buong Southeast Asia. Ngayon, yung issue, Ariel, na sinasabi mo na classification yung bigat, alam mo, silita ako, nung sinabi nilang, bakit kung tataasan yung mga 10-wheelers? Bakit? Sabi ko, kasi kayo ang malakas sumira ng kalsada eh. Yung mabibigat. Alam mo, sabi sa akin nung Truck Holders Association, ang sabi niya, totoo po yun, Congressman. Mabigat kami. Pero yun pong bagong technology ng equal application of actual weight sa mga 10-wheelers, kami, pag tumakbo na kami ng 50 to 60 kilometers, paano kami makakasira ng lansangan? Hindi huli-huli ako. Ano masasabi ko? Sabi ko, that's correct when you travel at 50 to 60. But on a stoplight, when the light turns to green and you start to accelerate, the damage to the road because of your tires acceleration at saka yung paggulong ng gulong mo, the damage is equal to the weight of your vehicle times the velocity squared. Wala silang masabi ron.
Sabi sa inyo, no, straight eh. Kaya nga pa rin mascom eh.
The road is equal to the weight of the vehicle times the velocity squared. When you start to accelerate and scratch the surface of the road. Hanggang ngayon, wala pa na yung pagkutalo doon sa aking binagay. Pero, Ariel, meron lang akong sasabihin. Kung nandun kami sa Davao, kasi nakakalimutan ko eh. I promise someone that I'll take up this issue. In-emphasize ng Pangulong Duterte ang death penalty. On my side, kung pinalit yan ng dating Pangulong Gloria, isa ako sa bumoto against it. May attention na pinagpul kasi sa Malacanang kinuha nila ang yes and no eh. Tinawag ko, sabi ko, you voted against me. Sabi ko, Madam President, sa akin mo, I'm not against death penalty or lifting. Ang sinasabi ko lang mo, apat na category ng crime natin. At pinatay mo yung na-rape, death. Kung hindi mo naman pinatay at na-rape, life. Ngayon, kung pinakasalan mo, eh bahala na kayo mag-usap. Diba? Ay usapan sila. Pangalawa, if you kidnap, pinatay mo yung na-kidnap, regardless whether ransom is paid or not, death. Pag nabuhay yung na-kidnap, after paying the ransom, at nasulit ka, life. Yun ang mga hiningi ko provision doon sa IRR. Of course, it was not approved. Pero sinabi ko lang. But ano ang mga hiningi ko? On drugs, death. Walang pasubali. Basta nahulihan ka lang ganun madami. You're a big time to circle. On terrorism, death. Ang point ko, pag nagpasabog ka ng mga bus station, ano naman pakialam ng masa? Kung may ideology ka na gusto mong ihayag sa mundo o sa bansang ito, ng paniniwala mo, ba't mo kailangan pasabugin yung mga bus terminal, yung mga supermarket? What does the public got to do with it? So yun, mga nilagay kong mga insert dun sa batas. Of course, I was on the road.
So kung magbubotohan muli sa pagbabalik ng death penalty, maski kayo ay nasa minorya, it doesn't matter. Buboto pa rin kayo pabor sa death penalty with some conditions.
Maybe they might not be Florida. So yeah. Ay, correct. Ngayon, gusto ko lang kayong mga nasa media, balikan ninyo ang nakaraang panahon. For the several, walang araw na ang tabloid ay walang balita ng mga heinous crime na drug-related. Isipin ninyo, ni-rape yung anak, kapatid, dahil sa, ayon sa pulisya, ay under the influence of drug. Bata, nakita, walang damit sa isang rape, pinalo ang ulo ng bato, 3 ang suspect, lahat were under the influence of drug. Isang apo, pinatay ang kanyang lolo, ayaw bigyan ng drug. Countless na news item, lahat na heinous crime, drug-related. Nung ako ang chairman ng oversight at minority leader, kaharap ko ang mga police, enforcement PDEA. Ang sasabihin ko, hihingi na naman kayo ng budget. Taas kayo ng taas ng budget taon-taon. Ay ba't taas din ang taas ang crime at saka ang drugs wala kayong magawa? Ano mo, sana maintindihan yung position ng isang congressman na nag-a-approve ng pera ng isang... Because I take my job seriously. Kasi binibigyan ka ng pera ng taong bayan, buwis yan eh. Para gawin mo yung trabaho mo. And yet, you can see blank faces na parang wala kami magawa. Yan yung magagawa mo. Parang ganun eh. Ngayon, mga kasama, tingnan naman ninyo ang balita. May nakikita pa ba kayo na heinous crime na drug-related? Kaya, gaya na sinabi ko, if there is one major credit that I can give to President Duterte after 2022, napigil niya ang drugs. And just for that alone, this country must be thankful for it now. Kung talagang tutuloy-tuloy niya itong ginagawa. Yeah. Yun lang, gusto kong... Kaya sabi ko nga kay Ariel, salamat sa pag-imbita mo because I just would like to make this statement parte.
Okay, papalitan natin mamaya si Congressman Danny Suarez. Dumating na po isa pa sa ating panauhin. Dati po siyang kapagsalita, Secretary ng Gabinete ng dating Pangulong si GMA, si Secretary Gary Olivar. Sa mga nag-aaral sa UP, ito yung legend sa UP, sa UKAT. Siya lang yata yung perfect o may mali. Siya yung UKAT. College Admission Test.
Alam mo, Ariel, isa ang mali ko noon. May nakapag-perfect na noon ever since. So, pwede natin we can stop talking about that. Galing ng Tisay.
Na-break ba ba yun?
Mahirap pang perfect ng anything. Siyempre, kaya hahahanga yan.
But anyway, si Secretary Olivar, atin pong naimbitahan. Dahil sa bagong lunsad na initiative sa ilalim ni President Duterte, ito grupong tinatawag na Conform to Federalism. Conformal Reform toward Federalism. Secretary, ano na ang estado ng inyong kampanya ng bagong initiative para tayo mapunta sa Federalism?
Well, alam mo, Ariel, nakakaroon na ng mga bago pa man naupo si Pangulo, no? Ang mga sariling inisyatiba yung mga tao na pag-aralan at isulong ang federalismo. Actually, this has a long history, as you know. Pero ngayon, nakakaroon ng bagong sigla ito dahil na sa ipinaiwatig ng Pangulo na ito ang gusto niya. Ito niya gusto dali ng Pilipinas. Nagkaroon na po ng mga conferences sa Manila at sa Davao. And being organized by some of the conveners of this group na kasama ko sa Speakers Bureau nito, no? Meron din mga binabag na conferences sa Tarlac, sa Nagor Legazpi, sa later again in Manila, sa Zamboanga, Puerto Princesa, Cagayan de Oro, within this month. So, ang nation roll out ng inisyatibong ito. Ngayon, itong constitutional reformers towards federalism o core fed, sabihin na natin. No? Ito po ang lead convener dito ay yung At kasama din natin dati kay, sa administrasyon dati si Atty. Raul Lambino, nagkaroon pa ng General Assembly last weekend. I think we were able to establish consensus, malawakang consensus na dapat na magkaroon ng federalist reforms within the country for various reasons.
Sir Gary, I suppose, ilan kakalay yung mabuti ang usapin nito?
Yes, I would like a vibrant group na nag-usap-usap yung mga tao. Ngayon ay katatayo ng isang website which will be made public para magkaroon din ng malawakang partisipasyon ng publiko.
Sa inyo pong pag-aaral, saan nagagaling ng oposisyon patungo sa federalism?
Well, kasi po, any kind of change, lalo na ganitong klaseng magbago, magkakaroon talaga ng resistensya. Yung mga tao natatakot na magkaroon ng pagbabago. So it's understandable. So hopefully, kung may papaliwanag lang na maayos ang mga dahilan kung bakit sa palagay natin maganda itong move na ito, ay magsisimula rin magbago ng isip ang mga kasulubong yung tumututol dito.
Opo. Ang mga keywords para maunawaan o hindi maunawaan ang tao, yung word na devolution, decentralization.
Dalawa ang patayang prinsipyo, ay nasa pagpapaliwanag na ginawa ni dating USEC. Doon sana sa General Assembly over the weekend. The first principle is autonomy. Ang ibig ko sabihin nun, yung mga itatayo mga units, whether we call regions, sabihin natin states, ay autonomiya, magiging pansarili, mas malakas ang kanilang, mas maraming kanilang mga kapangyarihan upang patakbuhin ang kanilang mga kanilang mga iba-ibang constituency. Ang isang halimbawa po nito is instead of namamalimos yung mga LGU every year para sa kanilang internal revenue allocation, ang sinasuggest ni former Senator Pimentel sa kanyang formula is 80% ng lahat ng kita ng gobyerno mapupunta sa state, 20% na maiiwanan sa national. So napakalaking pagpapalakas po yung autonomiya ng mga local governments, mga state governments. The second important principle is subsidiarity. Ang ibig po sabihin nun ay gumaganda ang kalidad ng pamamahala habang inilalapit po ninyo ito sa mga sinisilbihan nyo. The closer the governance is to the people, the better. Halimbawa po, ang governor ng state of Bicol, nasa kanya na po ang 80% ng kita ng mga koleksyon mula sa kanyang region. Siya na po magiging focus ng pamamahala at nagpapaunlad ng region ng Bicol. Sa kanya na po pitingin at tatakbo ang mga botante sa Bicol, sa kanila din siya mananagot, kaya magiging mas responsive at mas malapit ang pag-uugnayan ng mga namumuno sa mga pinagpuputuan. So makikita po natin sa parang ganito, pati po yung kultura ng politika, ng civic culture sa Pilipinas, ito po ay magbabago at uunlad. Kasi po mas malapit ngayon ang mga namumuno sa kanilang mga pinagpuputuan.
Sir Gary, fear of the unknown. Baka naman pagpupunta kami, mga taga-Quezon, sa Tarlac, kailangan ng passport. Baka magkapagsapasak ang bansa natin. Kung federalism.
And of course, pero maganda yung halimbawa mo, but I would not be surprised kung magkaroon ng ganun argument yung mga federalism, not on rational grounds, but for hidden agendas. May mga ganun naglalabas. Obviously, may mga kapangyarihan na dapat na manatili sa national government. And that is what the 20% ng revenue na iwanan sa kanila. Yun po yung government. Halimbawa, one foreign policy, one secure national police organization, ano pa ba? Maybe one educational system, although sa as you know, the states have a lot of control sa kanilang educational system. Wala yan ang Department of Education sa US for that reason. So, ano pa? Foreign policy, diplomacy, siyempre. Actually, you go to the list, at tanongin niyo sa sarili niyo, alin ba dito sa mga ginagawa ng national government ang pwede ilipat? So, we'll come up with a very long list. Mag-isip-isip lang tayo. At ang matitilan talaga ay halimbawa yung passport. Dapat isang passport na talaga. Pero monetary policy, one central bank, at saka nga pala sa SEDI, so naalala po yan, no? So obviously, one central bank for purposes of maintaining one monetary system. Pero yung access to economic resources, yung pagpapalaganap ng economic development plans, yung pag-imbita sa mga foreign investors, sa mga patakaran na nilalatag para mahikayat ang mga investors, yun po ay pwede i-devolve sa state level. Sa palagay ko, magiging effective din yun dahil mas kilala ng bawat state governor ang mga kondisyon ng kanilang mga states. So, yun po isang inaasahan natin mangyayari.
Apo, kung Gani Suarez, itong pagbabago sa sabi ng batas, matagal ng binaplano eh. Pero sa tingin niyo ba, matutuloy kung ano man ang pagbabago sa salig ng batas na inumpisahan ito sa pag-umpisa ng termino ng bagong Pangulo?
Doon sa pagpupulong namin sa Davao, sinight din ng Pangulong Duterte yung tungkol sa pagbabago ng tinatch yung federalism. But of course, when you touch federalism, you must amend the Constitution. So, ang kanyang ananaw doon ay, I think he mentioned the word concon. Dito sa sinabi ni Gary, no, I mean, ang akin lang, hindi ko naman sinasabi concern because if I see something as an advantage to my region and to my province, I will keep silent. I'm supposed to do that. Pero hindi nga dapat eh. Dapat ano yung concern ng buong bansa, di ba? Therefore, I think we earn about 96 billion a year, which we contribute to the national government. Billion 4. Ngayon, ang natatanggap ng Region 4 in terms of subsistence from the national government through IRA, 30. So, nawawala kami ng 60-something. Doon sa proposal nila Gary, 80% of 98 will go to us. So, we will be a super region. Ang ganong kalaki. Ngayon, the concern is, yung poorest region, it's particularly is, you can see that in the autonomous region of Cordillera and 2 areas in Mindanao. You're saying that, yeah, magkakaroon ng malaking subsystem. Ganun ang mangyayari.
Alam niyo kung sa US, under the amended tax code, it's 2 decades, actually 3 decades yung amended code. Meron ang provision for tax equalization fund na within a given state, yun pong mga mayayaman na syudad, obligado po sila mag-share sa mga mas mahirap na syudad based on formulas. So pwede rin gawin yun among the different regions, siyempre. Ang kagandahan nga nito is, yun po mga poorer regions, ito na ay 30% ng kanilang napakaliit, yun lang natatanggap nila. At least, maging 80% ng kanilang maliit na kinikita. Tapos meron pa sila ngayong kapangyarihan na gumawa ng mga paraan upang lalong mapalaganap ang kanilang region. Halimbawa, maging mas competitive ang Bicol, let's say, compared to Central Luzon. They can be more liberal sa kanilang nilalatag na investment instead, provide for lower corporate tax rates. They can be more aggressive in building infrastructure. They can issue municipal bonds. Ang dami po na pwede gawin na manageable within the context of a state. Okay. So, ano to eh, sa nakita ko win-win dahil pati yung pagkukulang ng mga poorer regions, mapapangalan Cong, based on the formulas.
That will eliminate IRA already.
Well, it will now become IRA na hihingin ng national government, paligtad na. Ayun naman ang purpose nun eh. Yung 20% ng mga LGU ngayon, 20% na hihingin ng national government. So, paligtad. So if you're turning the paradigm on its head, okay, and this is a real, kaya nga sinasabi ni Senator Pimentel, we're not just amending the Constitution to do this. We are actually revising it. Which brings me to my second point. Kaya ang tawag sa amin ng constitutional reformers, kapag po binuksan ng constitution to change in order to accommodate federalism, bukas na po ito for all other kinds of changes sa mga mamamayan. Halimbawa yung, I don't know, yung liberalization foreign ownership na pinaiwatag na ni Pangulo na is in favor of expand, except for land ownership, no? Is in favor of liberalizing foreign ownership restrictions. Okay, binabalak niya, sabi niya magtatayo ng mga business islands where in order for a state to become competitive, it may choose to suspend national laws regarding labor compensation, for example, or fiscal incentives, whatever. That may require constitutional change. I'm not sure, hindi pa ako abogado. Pero the moment you open up the Constitution, as I said, to federalist reform, you open it up as well to all the other reforms na maaaring hilingin ng mamamayan. Ang last comment lang sa con na binanggit ni Cong Danny, based po sa General Assembly na ginawa namin noong weekend, yung kasi tatlong paraan yun Constituent Assembly, which utilizes the existing legislature, Con, which can be set up in a number of different ways, at saka yung popular initiative. I think there was a consensus that the most effective way and the most efficient way, kasi nagmamadali po tayo, no? Time is of the essence, is to do a Con. Hindi po Con-as, hindi po pirma. Kasi ang Con, ang problema kasi sa Con-as, ang concern ng mga tao, firstly, yung napakalaki, napakarami, kalawa, people, the congressmen, and of any congress who really wants that kind of constitution, as I said, napakarami. Kasi may requirement si Pangulo na sinabi niya at some point, sinabi niya, I would like the appropriate experts to be involved in drafting this document. Now, do we have enough experts? Are we sure na magkakaroon ng sufficient expertise? So, yun ang mga problems with that particular approach. I think the consensus now, I don't know if the President will agree, but certainly, however you select it, is to have a constitutional convention.
Going to that proposal of changing the constitution, as you said, Secretary Olivar, there are three ways: Con, and what's the other one? Yes, but even as the president right now is favoring Con. I overheard that the incoming secretary and speaker would like a Con-as because by converting the House and the Congress into a Con-as, you can immediately go into the proposed amendments and then finish this by 2019 so that we can have a referendum. Well, this is what I read, no? But,
Isasabay mo yung referendum.
yes, yes, sir. Now, going to the equalization fund that you mentioned, because this has been proposed by Nene Pimentel, no? To allow, but wouldn't the other representatives, especially the urban cities, who have billions of income, wouldn't they object that part of their money will now go to the other places instead of going back to them?
Well, I would think na mangyayari is there's two levels of equalization. Within the state, between the cities and the rural areas, and states. Objections, yeah, no? And so it becomes a process of, ideally, this is something that gets negotiated on a case-to-case basis. As long as it's provided that there should be sharing, okay, then this thing ought to be worked out equitably and amicably. Of course, there will be, siyempre, kanya-kanya, nagsosolo ng sariling kayamanan. Of course, there will be that. Kaya kailangan magkaroon ng negotiation.
Okay. Congressman Suarez, sabi nyo nga, Con or Con-as. Personally, what are you in favor of?
I would rather go to a Con. Kasi before that, I'm taking the mind of my of my political ally, there are some thoughts of cutting the process by Congress, Congress, means House and Senate nominates, not them, but nominates. And then the rest will be appointed by the President para mabilis lang yung process.
Parang constitutional commission.
Oo, pero yun, it will be a con-con. Pero yun ang mga magsisi-attend. I would rather go, personally, I would rather go to a con-con that's elected by the people and make it pass, sabay mo yung election sa barangay election. And then, sorry guys, na bigyan mo ng prescription period that you must finish all this necessary amendment to the Constitution and present it as a referendum on the 2019. So we cut short on the expenditures. Kasi di naman natin maiwasan yung paggastos ng barangay. Hindi sabay ko na yung mga delegado, tapos yung referendum, kung i-separate ko yan, malaking gastos yun. Isabay mo naman sa 2019. So we have a new constitution by 2019, and effectively, by 2022, we have a new form of government. Kung para sa yung concept nila, Gary, sa federalism.
Can I comment on that?
Okay.
I think what Cong Danny was referring to was the resolution that was filed in the House by Congresswoman GMA, which basically provides for a 48-man constitutional convention, 24 to be appointed by the President, 12 by the Senate, and 12 by Congress. Presumably, the appointees will be, there has to be an enabling law passed, by the way, by Congress in order to set forth the procedures for constituting this conference, etc. Now, this obviously, presumably, will satisfy the expertise requirement. Kailangan mga magagaling na tao naman ang gagawa ng Constitution, which is, by the way, the same way she chose her Constitutional Commission of 50 people, which drafted in 2005 a possible revised draft Constitution. Now, because the people, these delegates will, especially from the legislative side, are being nominated by elected representatives of the people, then to our mind, or to the mind of those who favor this resolution, they're being appointed by elected representatives of the people, senators and the congressmen, already satisfies the requirement for representativeness of the members of the Con. And secondly, I would say that, I would add that bukod po sa nangyari sa loob ng Con, kailangan from beginning to end, may continuing broad consultation. Napakahalaga po nun. Whether it's a Con or a Concom or whatever, kailangan po involve palagi ang general public. And that's why we're rolling out these regional conferences, we're putting up the website. Hopefully, yung mga tao dito na iniwala dito will be able also to push this in the respective media outlets. The requirement for consultation is so important regardless of how the formal process proceeds.
So, you're in favor of the proposal of PGMA, no?
No surprises. Yes, I am.
But
That's me personally, and that's not the group. That's me personally.
representation not to be nominated by the or selected by the Congress of 24 only, right? Wouldn't there be a problem of who will be the one to nominate? Maraming magkakaroon ng tayo ng kanya. Konting problema.
And this is where now hopefully the congressmen and the senators will earn their salaries by being able to do the process rationally and effectively. I mean, they were elected, right? Remember, at the end of the day, this constitution has to go to a plebiscite anyway, no matter how it was drafted. And so the people will always have the final say anyway. Papalit naman sa mamamayan niya. Now, how the constitution is drafted with expertise, is it drafted in a way that's separate from parties and politics? Ayun po siguro ang mahalagang issue na dapat tignan when we're thinking about how to draft the charter.
I just would like to add up on what Gary said. At the end of the day, mga kasama, the approach will be typically one objective, and that is, ang objective is to find the faults in the weakness of the present system and correct it. Yun ang, kaya we all boils down to one thing. It is the trust rating of the president. Kapag ang tao ay naniniwala na pag sinabi ni Presidente Duterte that this approach will be better with his popularity right now and the trust rating that he's receiving right now, then it should go. Kasi sa akin, gaya na sinabi ko, nanood ka ba nung laban ng Gilas at saka ng Suarez? Nakita mo yung siguro ng mga spectator? Ako hindi, wala naman ako ron, pero nandun yung anak ko. Kala mo, itong dumating siya, nandun pa yun eh. And I think this, the president is aware of the fact that up to now, the public is longing for what you promised. And as long as there is that trust, the yung gagawin, the end of the day will have to be approved by the president, whether we like it or not. Just the people. Ganun pa rin tayo, mangyayari yung dapat mangyari na para sa ikabubuti ng tao. Sapagkat, tanda mo sinabi ko, basta ang naniniwala ang tao na walang ulterior motive ang Pangulo, then lulusot at lulusot.
Salamat kung nanin nabanggit niya yung kahalagahan ng pagiging pinagkakatiwala ng Pangulo sa pagtulak nito. Having said that, kung natin kalilimutan, ito pong political honeymoon, yung political capital, madalas po maikli lang yan. Don't think may exception dito, may tali yan eh. So, kaya kasi natin ko at the start, time is of the essence. Strike while the iron is hot. In other words, move this process along as quickly as possible while maintaining broad consultation and making sure the expertise requirements are being met so you have a good product at the end. Ayun po siguro ang mga kailangang tiyakin natin na mangyayari kapag sa proseso nito.
So are we looking at the passing of the bills, no, to form the CONCON, and are we looking by 2017 that we can start?
Well, hopefully,
Oh, I'll be back.
Well,
I'm back already.
Okay. And maybe Cong Dani can give us a reality check now. Ideally, the enabling law can be in session in time for, let's say, for the delegates in our scenario to be appointed before the end of the year. They can start their work no later than after they get back from Christmas. I'm talking about the delegates, no? From Christmas recess. Now, if the groundwork has already been laid in terms of the issues already being discussed by both what we have here, and perhaps the formation of a preparatory commission para mapag-aralan in a formal way, mailatag na, there is in fact already a draft, in 2005 draft, na pwede gawing working document. Pwede palitin to, pwede punitin to, pero at least may pinagmumula na hindi na kailangan sulatin pa. Kung mabilis ang trabaho at the start of January of 2017, it can be finished, what, in 3-4 months, and then within 60 to 90 days, there's a requirement of a plebiscite. It could be done by the end of next year, 2017, if we all move quickly and cooperate in the interest of the nation. Less than 2 years, 1.5 years, kaya.
I think reality check, Secretary, having been a witness to the 1971 Constitutional Convention, we have to get a reality check. But, my feeling is 2017 pa mag-umpisa yan. Not January, but all of these things that you're saying, matagal ho yan eh. But of course, I'm with you that we start by 2017 and have this ready by the end of the year and ready na for the 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. Ernie?
Good morning, gentlemen. You partly answered the questions I'm supposed to ask, but still I'll ask this. What is the overriding reason Ano bang talagang dahilan at nagmamadali kayo na palitan ng ating sistema? What's the overriding reason? Just give us two or what?
The need for autonomy and the need for subsidiarity. That's two.
Yeah,
As I mentioned earlier.
What will that do with the people?
When you change the political environment within which people conduct their business, this leads not only to changes in outcomes but also to changes in behavior and thinking. Kailangan baguhin mo nakapaligid sa tao para magbago ang pag-iisip niya. Pag nagbago ang pag-iisip niya, magbabago ang behavior niya in a permanent way. Yun naman ang matagal natin hininga.
Sino mag-iigit? Who said so?
Who said so?
Yeah. Who wants the change?
Do we not need a change?
I'm asking you.
We need
Why
a
are you
change.
doing this now?
Who-
What is the
here-
your decision to propose this federal system of government?
Is there anyone here?
What
Is there anyone here who believes we do not need a change in our political culture? I would like to see their hands raised and listen to their arguments.
Yeah, what is the overriding reason?
Why do we not need a change?
I want a change, but depende sa change.
I'm sorry?
Depende kung anong pagbabago yun.
Okay. Sino magagarantiya ng pagbabago? Ito po ay isang convention na nag-meeting as a duly constituted body with full freedom to decide what is best for the people. It's the only way I know about in a democracy. Do you have other suggestions?
Have you asked the people
They will be
if they
asked,
want change?
they will be asked to be confident with the leadership.
Before you, because you
Teka,
want
teka.
to waste
Sandali,
time.
sandali. Order.
Sandali lang.
Ito ba ito?
Sandali lang. Aabutin tayo ng alas 12. Ganito na lang, sana maintindihan din ninyo mga kasama sa media ang trabaho namin. Ako, legislator ako.
Naintindihan po namin yan.
Gumawa ako ng batas sapagkat ang aking paniwala, ang buwis ang dumadaloy ng dugo para sa bayan. Pag walang dugo, mamamatay ang katawan. Tama. Ngayon, dalawang ahensya natin ang kumukolekta ng malaki para sa buwis na makakatulong sa mga mamamayan. BIR at custom. Gumawa ako ng tatlong batas. Una, gumawa ako ng isang hakbang na isa na lamang ang husgado ng buwis. At ito ang Court of Tax Appeals. Inalis ko na yung mahabang proseso na nakakalamang-lamang sa malalaking negosyante. Ano yung mahabang proseso? Pupunta ka sa Municipal Trial Court, pupunta ka sa RTC, pupunta ka sa Court of Appeals, pupunta ka sa Supreme Court. Mga 80 years bago matapos ang isang tax case. Ngayon, isa na lang buwis with finality. Isa na lang husgado, Court of Tax Appeals. Ginawa ko yan, naging batas. Gumawa ako ng batas, attrition. Kumulekta ka ng tama, mayroon kang komisyon. Nung si BIR, custom collector, karoon ng isang term na ang buong custom ay nagkaroon ng bonus na 630 million. Bonus. Pati janitor. Basta, I forget the name.
Morales.
Pero tingnan mo ito. Ako gumawa ng batas. Hindi mo pinatupad. Ano ang magagawa ninyo kung ayaw ipatupad ng administrasyon? Yun ang isang bagay na dapat natin baguhin. Laws must be implemented. And kaya nga, pinasayan pinag-aralan. And just for that, there must be a way of coming up with safety nets na walang abuso. And just for that, I go for amending this constitution para makorek lang yung mistake na yan na ngayon nangyayari. And I hope you will understand with me. Yeah, fine, let's have a good debate here on why it is needed, how urgently it is needed. But I'm telling you, pang-10 taon ko na itong congressman, I've seen the weakness of the system. Maniwala naman kayo sa akin, nag-aaral ako And we really have to amend this constitution. Maniwala kayo sa akin. Marami, and by the way, one of the primordial reason ang mundo nagbago na. Marami ng pagbabago sa technology, marami ng pagbabago sa science na talagang kailangan ang bansa natin ay ituon natin dito sa bagong environment. And some admittedly will have to be answered by the new constitution. Kaya tama si Gary.
Okay. Have you done any effort just to ask the people if they want this change that you're going to work on or not? Because in their minds, we're talking to people. They're even asking, why spend money and time on this? Anyway, they present it in a referendum. If we reject it, it will be a waste of money and a waste of time. So the suggestion is, why don't you ask first the people, do you want this to happen or not? Then put in the details that you need. Instead of you rushing it, I want the hot, while the iron is hot, let's do it.
Pero kayo ba, Secretary Gary,
Generational change to
may
it.
mga consultations sa mga ginagawa yung grupo?
Kaya nga po binanggit yung yung mga plano at nagsimula na nga ito, no? Yung paglatag ng mga regional conferences. I can tell you, kahit na ngayon pa lang, marami din mga pupunta, nagtataka sila, bakit kailangan ba ng institution? Kaya nga nagkakaroon ng conferences para magkaroon ng palitan ng mga puro-puro at hopefully, kahit natin yung mga tao on our side. Siyempre, hindi mo magagawa sa lahat. Pero the important thing is, nagsisimula ng consultative process which I said is essential. And we give people a chance to express their opinions. And it's reflected in the process. Yun naman ang mahalaga sa isang demokrasya.
Anyway, you're in a hurry.
Starting now.
You're in a hurry. With the new technology, you can ask as many people as you want. You just concentrate on it.
Well, I don't see what regional conferences, how that. Then we also have social media based.
Yes.
We already have that. We've got websites, we've got Viber groups, we are planning a social media campaign. Obviously, as part of the communication and consultation process. Pero meron din mga regional conferences for people na hindi accessible to social media. Marami din pa naman gano'n. Marami pang gano'n.
I have one last question about this 80 million peso pork barrel fund which lawmaker Congress. What's that? How true is it? Have a consensus?
Hindi kasi ako congressman yan. Ang congressman yung misis ko eh. Ganito yun. Yung pera yan, nakasama, ulit-ulitin ko, hindi yan hinahawakan ng congressman.
Dati.
Hanggang ngayon.
Nung lamsa.
Hanggang ngayon.
Direct lang.
Ina-identify lang nila kung saan ilalagay. Katulad ko, kung kayo ay wala kayong hindi kayo busy sa maga, pumunta kayo sa 504 Buendia Avenue North Court. Yun ang bahay ko. Makakita kayo doon ng mga 7 hanggang 8 pasyente. Sa buong dalawigan ng Quezon na hindi na kaya ng Quezon Medical Center, padadala ko na sa Manila. Yan, padadala ko sa heart, sa kidney, sa lungs. May nabalian dyan sa orthopedic, sa PGH, yung bata, children. Ang perang yan, yung perang sinasabi niya, nilalagay namin sa mga hospital. Pangalawa, nilalagay din namin sa DSWD. DSWD, pag meron naman mga namatay na hindi kayang ipagpalibing, pinabibigyan namin sa DSWD. Pero yan, ay meron tinatawag na abstract. Ipakita, yung namatay ay indigent at hindi kayang ipalibing. Pera ng congressman yan na nasa DSWD. Meron kami pera, inilalagay namin sa SCHED at saka sa TESTA. Ito naman, doon sa scholarship. Mga kasama, walang potong yan. Nabago na ang sistema ngayon. At pangalawa, sa napakahigpit ng COA ngayon, na talaga naman ay hindi mo na pag-iisipan pa na salbahihin yung pondo na inaamin ko, were abused before. There were abuses that was done by my colleagues before, and that's precisely the reason why we did this necessary amendment to the process.
So may pork barrel.
Well, if you want to Kasi ganito yan. At sino nga natin yung term na operational anointed program. Gawin na rin. Kasi ginagamit niyo yung salita ng Amerikano, maling-maling na.
May definition na binigay ang Supreme Court sa court pa rin.
Illegal na eh. Sinabi ng illegal. Ba't mo pa sasabihin court pa rin?
Unfair naman na sagutin mo yung ginawa o hindi ka. Gawin natin yung personal. Kayo ba may kaso? Kayo ba may Janet Lim na bonus ng project?
Siguro naman hindi mo naman makitanggi may closeness to the previous administrator about GMA. And I'm very proud to say, ako term ko na, wala akong kaso. Minsan lang, babae. Napag-suspensyahan ako. Kasalanan ko ba na dahil ako ng pitutin?
Thank you very much. Hindi ko alam, classmate ko pala si Ariel.
Okay, pag kasama sa Quezon, pag ikaw ay na-dismiss sa magandang babae, ito, pamilin mo na. Okay, kasi sa atin lang sa mga dyan. Sige po, sige po.
Congress of Finaw eh.
Ganito yun, ano? Ang mga regions ay may karapatang magtakda ng sarili nilang batas. That doesn't necessarily mean na kami ng approval sa national, no. Kasi doon sa amin, pwede kaming magtakda katulad ng classic example, kaming mag-union. Ang National Capital Region is dependently coconut producing. Pwede kami maggumawa ng batas na sasabihin, hindi ka pwedeng magputol ng coco lumber kapag wala kang itinanim na bago. Yan ang batas yan. Pero walang sumusunod. Ngayon, kung maglalagay ka ng super region na kami ang magpapatupad ng aming batas, pwede kami magkaroon ng sarili naming police power para ipatupad yan. Yan ang aming problema na nakatingin kami sa PCA na hindi nag-perform. Wala nangyayari sa amin. Kaya na sinabi ko, by this time siguro, I don't know kung sino sa inyo ang coconut producing provinces, by this time, yung mga 70% of our coconut are senior citizens. Walang replanting. Yun ang classic example ng federalism. Yung concern ng lalawigan ay mabibigyan ng hustisya na hindi namin kailangan ng national government.
Even the proliferation of legislative bodies in the different federal units, who will resolve the conflict, possible conflict among these laws issued by different units?
Well, obviously, the system whenever it sets up, siyempre dapat may mga provision for mechanisms to resolve conflicts among the different states. At the same time, siyempre katulad ng paliwanag ni Cong, may mga nire-reserve din naman sa national. I should mention at this point, by the way, na bukod sa debate between unitary is what we have now, kahit sa ilalim ng federalism, meron ka rin choice between presidential or parliamentary system. So, ang tanong niyo about what will happen to Congress if you go with let's say with Senator Pimentel's model, which is presidential. I would think you will have Congress, but maybe with a more restricted scope of lawmaking, katulad ng paliwanag ni Cong. If you go with Parliament, though, then it's a different story. Maybe you have unicameral, maybe bicameral Parliament. You may or may not have regional parliaments. Hindi pa maliwanag yun. So ito, mga iba-ibang idea na pinag-uusapan. Kaya pag-usapan, kaya kakaroon ng mga conferences. Ito, kung kakaroon dapat ng preparatory commission, pag-usapan sa conference yun. Iba-ibang mga models. Pero ang in common sa lahat, dapat magkaroon ng federal system.
In those federal systems, pero silang mga recall system for the existing government.
Yeah.
Kung parliamentary, post-parliamentary.
To adapt to the to what Gary said. If we go parliamentary and there is a massive failure how the system is being run, you can immediately collapse the parliament and create a new one. You don't have to wait for the 10 period. Pwede mo i-collapse.
Royce po yung po, sir. Hindi mo ata ako kilala eh. Royce po yung po, inawali ko.
Sige po, tanong.
Media dati. Sir, ang tanong ko po ay pwedeng sagutin ng dalawang matalinong guests natin, Congressman Suarez at Gary Olivar. Sir, assuming na ma-approve yung hinahangad nyo, na fundamental federal government, assuming mangyari po yun, how are you going to treat now, after federalism, yung joint initiatives signed by the MILF and the MNLF with the previous government? Paano po tatatawin nyo yun? Paano po? Mababaliwala ba? O ano ang inyong gagawin para manatili yun? Knowing Mindanao, I covered Mindanao for 11 years. I know the aspiration of the Moro people more than others. So, sa ngayon po, ang pagkakalam ko, ayaw nila niyan.
Can I be the first to answer?
Yes, sir.
With my limited knowledge on this issue, treaties are supposed to be honored regardless of who the head, in what form of government there is. Hindi mo pwedeng evaluate ang napag-agrihanan. Kaya nga treaty. Ngayon, ang point mo is treaties can be with good intention, but it's a question of implementation. Tulad nung ginawa ng dating Pangulong Gloria na ginawa natin yung peace effort. I think si Jess Dureza pa sila. No? I mean, these are of good intention. Pero ikaw na-cover ka sa Mindanao, and with my apology to our Muslim brothers, yung maganda sa isang lugar, doesn't necessarily mean na gusto nitong kabila eh. Yan ang problema namin talaga ron eh.
Sir, we understand that. I understand that very well. Na yung ayaw ng iba, gusto din ng isa. But my question is, ano po ang mangyayari doon sa dual initiatives ng MNLF sa kanang MILF na pinirma nila? I don't know how you are going to treat it as a treaty of what. Doesn't matter to me.
MILF wala pa yata nila yung BBL. Well, okay, let me answer this way. Nung nag-present po si former Senate President Pimentel sa amin over the weekend, he described 11 to 13 states na pwede buuin. Sa Mindanao, I think was Northern Mindanao, Southern Mindanao. In Northern Mindanao, pwede pang baklasin kasi it's a big area. And a Bangsamoro state. Yun, hindi nawawala yun. Ngayon, yung Bangsamoro state, pwede pang baklasin yun between the mainland Muslims and the island Muslims. Pero he recognizes, he accepts that, like any other state, you have different people. Siyempre, kahit sa Bangsamoro state, may mga Kristiyano. So, ang advice niya is, like in any other state in the Philippines, dapat yung minority, maayos ang trato. Ngayon, what if, let's say, let's talk about MNLF kasi sila maritime system. If the MNLF decides, okay, given yung bago setup na ito at masaya kami sa Bangsamoro state, binigyan kami ng share sa power, maybe the treaty needs to be either abrogated or revised accordingly. With the agreement of both parties, like any other treaty, diba? Pwede. Pero tama sinabi ni Cong, you cannot unilaterally disregard previous agreements. Tama yan. Obviously.
So, kikilalanin.
By definition, kikilalanin. Unless both parties decide to revisit, which is their right. Oh.
You can amend future treaties, pero yung nauna eh.
So that will stand. That will stand.
Of course. Treaties are such a problem tayo sa
you can announce that to the more people now that that will stand.
I don't think, isa lang naman ang treaty sa MNLF that has been standing. In fact, ang naging problema ka sa draft BBL, di ba, para pinapaniwala yung MNLF.
I am only talking about the two common initiative. Yun lang. I don't know if it is expected or what.
Wala pa agreement with the MNLF, yun ang problema. And maybe the best way to address this, if the concern is to have autonomy and subsidiarity, which are our principles here, is through a federal system to give them their own state.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congressman, wala yata kayong nabanggit sa mga papatawan ng death penalty. Binanggit nyo lang kita, bigat, tsaka rin. Kasama ho ba din yung sa drugs? Sa terrorismo at plunder?
Nabanggit nga. Yung drugs at terrorism. Yung sa papatawan ng death penalty.
You're talking of plunder. Whether death penalty is plunder. Is that the question?
Masasama. Dahil meron kayong release dun sa isang
nung kumontra ako sa lifting ng death penalty, sinabi ko yun, act of terrorism, death. Yun ang aking design sa IRR, no? Of course, it was disapproved. You may be right there. I did not touch on economic plunder, whether it's death. Siguro, lagyan mo ng threshold ng amount. If it's more than 100 million, death. Maraming mamamatay.
yung pagpapot nyo sa
I did not touch that. Admittedly, I forgot about that. Kidnapping, drugs, and terrorism.
yung pagpapot nyo sa death penalty, mukhang salumat nyo sa naging pagboto ninyo sa reproductive health law. At walang ipinag-iba sa posisyon ni Senator Soto. Siya'y anti-RHB, anti-arms law, pero tapo siya sa revival ng death penalty.
That will be his reckoning. Pagdating ito, yung mga presidente ang
Ngayon yata matatapos yung conference of Pius XII. At sigurado tayo na ang CPCP ay tutulog dito sa death.
I will go into an assumption that una will be the minority, assuming na kami yung minority. We will have problem on our own ranks of this. Because two of our members will definitely be anti-death penalty. Si Congressman Lito Atienza ng Buhay at si Harry Roque ng Kabayan. Kabayan si Harry. Kabayan si. So, among our ranks, but I've said, Congress is a numbers game. I mean, you can shout till heavens drop you dead. Pwede ka magsalita, pero pagdating na ng botohan, you have to abide by the rules of the game. That's a numbers game.
Okay, wala lang tayo mga kasama sa media. Tingnan na natin ng huling kaya ating mga panawin sa umaga nito. Congressman, kumahin na natin Secretary Gary Olivar. Secretary, anong nakikita nyo na pinakamalaking balakid doon sa kampanya ng grupo patungo sa federalism?
Siguro yung ang malaking balakid dito is yung magkasalungat, no? On one hand, kailangan mabilis ang prosesong ito. On the other hand, ang daming kailangang kausapin at maraming mga posibleng lumabas na interest groups na oppose it for various reasons. No? So, yun ang malaking balakid son is trying to get it done as quickly as possible while we still have enough political capital kay Pangulong Duterte, who is after all the best known proponent of this initiative. So, siguro, sasabi ko lang is, no, kung kayo po ay naniniwala sa ganitong klase pagbabago sa ating saligang batas at saka sa pamamahala sa atin, sana po ay mag-volunteer kayo at sumama kayo makisanib kayo dito po sa ginagawa natin inisiatiba. Ipaalam po natin sa ating mga congressmen at senador na gusto natin na magbabago ito sapagkat ang unang-una hakbang po nito ay ang kanilang pagpasa ng isang enabling law para simulan ng proseso. Sana po ay parating natin sa kanila sa lalong madaling panahon sa pinakamabisang paraan ang ating pagsuporta sa ganitong klaseng pagbabago. Nang sa ngayon po ay pasabihin sa kanila sa pinakamadaling panahon ang enabling law na kailangan para magsimula po ito.
Salamat po, Secretary Gary. Congressman, Danny, with super majority, may garantiya ba ang tao bayan na hindi ito super railroad? Hindi naman magaganap sa anumang pag-usay.
Hindi naman. I don't think it will happen. Yung parang stampad na lang ang Congress. I don't think it's going to happen. As I've said, tama yung sinabi ng isang nagtanong dyan na nagmamadali tayo, pero ano ba ang benepisyo talaga dyan doon sa naghihirap? Pakahirap yung sagutin, no? Dahil na sinabi ko, it takes years to find out the weakness of a system. And it will take years again to enable them to be corrected. That's, unfortunately, is the system that we have now. It is unitary. Sapagkat sa totoo lang, pag may kumpas ang itaas na talagang kumontra sa iyo, sa iyong panukala, ay wala ka naman talagang magagawa. Yan ang sinasabi ko, na pag nagkaroon tayo ng parliamentary kunyari at nagkaroon ng botohan ang tao na vote of no confidence, collapse ka. Lahat, mag-iilay ka na naman ng bagong delegado. Yun naman ang kagandahan ng sinasabi niya. Mga kasama sa akin is this, itong 3 taon na ito na 2016 to 19, I'm just already giving you an advance info of what will be my priority legislation, and that is still address the issue of revenue collected pamahalaan. Gaya ng nasabi ko, yung bang shortfall ng custom ng 2010 hanggang 2016, na alam natin na libo-libong container ang lumalabas na hindi kinukolekta, ito ba ay pababayaran na lang natin? Ano ang gagawin natin doon sa may yaman na ngayon dahil sa nagnakaw sila ng nakarahang 6 na taon? These are very good questions. I think we should have some answer. Ayun ang nasa media. Me, I'm going to get a telegraphic info. I'm not going to let this pass. Hahanapin ko talaga ito na nasa dito. Katulad nung nawalang 3,400 container. Yung nawala yan. Ano ba yung pumunta dito si David Copperfield ng Las Vegas? Yun, niwala niya yung elepante at isang tangke. Gusto niya malaman kung paano natin iniwala ang 3,400 container nang walang nakakita. But that's what I'm saying. Siguro, this will be a very interesting contest. Lalo-lalo na, though may candidate na make it, si Vice President Jojo, ako naman ay kaya sumasaludo ako dito kay Digo, kapag itong nakita akong tumbahan, talaga naman sinabi ko, I just repeat what I said, baka hindi na mo dito. Ma-address mo lang itong drug problem. You have already committed your administration up to 2022. Matigil mo lang yan.
Olivar, Congressman Suarez, sa ating lahat, maraming salamat po at magandang umaga.